was that noise?
That was me, Agent Jock 5Q, getting ready to give you a swirly.
What the fuck, man? You know, I have a black belt. I could probably kick your ass. Wait. Did you wash your hands?
Wash my hands? No. Because I'm evil. Ah, ha, 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 ha. That's right, you nerd. I'm gonna give you a swirly and then kill you. Ah.
You're lucky I shot that cock-juggling thunder cunt. The universes are colliding!
Where'd she go?
What's going on? Glad you asked. I'm from Earth too, but to you that's more like Earth awesome. And there's something you kinda need to look at with your reviews. I can't intervene though, so you're gonna have to do your reviews as normal, otherwise something might happen to your time stream. It's better not to mess with it. They're already a day late, but okay.
Hello, Internet. It's time for another Wednesday's serial. We're back to tradition and not doing anything on a Wednesday, right? And so, yeah, there are a bazillion books this week, and I don't think I want to ramble on about all of them, but I do want to give you all kind of a lowdown on them, because there's a lot of books that I'm going over that are a little off the beaten path this week, especially because there's really a push this Halloween to get people in the comic stores and do something with it, which is really awesome. So, before I get to that, kind of my indie book of the week is The Surrogates, and this book is incredible. The art's very Ben Temple-Smith. I don't want to just say Ben Temple-Smith. There's such a large number of artists kind of using this weird Photoshop over coloring with other bits, and it creates a look, and I know this was turned into a movie, and I'm probably going to see it for comparison, but this is a solid book. And one of there's a really cool thing where they use a device at the back, kind of like Watchmen, where there's different things, but one's kind of this very, educational paper talking about it and kind of analyzing this idea of the surrogate, which is where someone is able to strap something to their head and then go into a robot that looks like generally a more attractive person, but there's all kinds of ramifications for this, and it's somewhat explored in the book, which is this detective case, but then it goes on, and then what's really interesting about this kind of dissertation is that it allows a lot of world building, and it allows you to, as a writer, to kind of just do a narrative dump in a framing that's actually relevant and works. But really, if you kind of pull away in what the writer's trying to accomplish, it's just a narrative dump in 3 text pages, and that's fairly amazing. And then there's a case file. That one didn't do as much for me. There's this amazing newspaper article, so you can kind of see where that's at and how that goes, and newspaper but clearly meant to be digital. Which is interesting, but what's really interesting is the classifieds idea and how that would affect, kind of the Lonely John sort of syndrome and all of that. And then there's a brochure from the company who creates the surrogates, and it's this amazing design piece, and you're like, yeah, I kind of get into it and look to see where they're sold in the US. Yeah, it's just... It's a book to be recognized. Now, I picked this up for dirt cheap, and, if you have the patience, I'd recommend you do the same. Top Shelf every year has this sale where things are stupidly cheap. I got this and the sequel for $3 off, along with a bunch of other books, so FYI. Alright, we have the next issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles! Because! Yeah! 15... And this book is truckin'. You get a little bit of this and that. They really play with the Splinter Soaps thing. And Andy's Coon art still kills me. But it's not as bad in this issue. Not because it's not as bad, but there's a bit of the framing. The book's kind of moving so much that you get fewer the panels where the art just grates it. Maybe I'm a little more used to it too, which, but still prefer like anyone else. But the big thing here is we're seeing that the experiment that's been kind of danced around for so long is none other than Slash, and you get to see that really come to fruition, which is really going to play ahead in more than just one way. And you also see the Turtles looking for new headquarters, which is kind of a beat that's just in every ongoing Turtles story. And they have kind of a neat look at it in a way that kind of makes sense for this different kind of Turtles line. So, Turtles awesome as always, but if you're not on board, now is probably not the time to pick it up. Wait, Andy Kuhn's going to be off art for a while and then on again, and anybody following the series who's feeling the way I am, I think the most tactful way to kind of let them know that you're not so big on Andy Kuhn's art is try and say, oh man, I love the original artist, then I wasn't so big on it, but the scripts are always amazing. Now that you have this other artist on, man, I'm loving it. Hope he stays on. And we can get back more to what I loved about the book now that the one guy's gone. Or maybe, I don't know. And then there was the big title this week, and I wanted to put this up front because I think more people will be looking to my review for this book. But, is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Annual. Near as I can tell, they've never had an annual before. They've had specials, but not something actually labeled annual. And this is by Eastman with some assists from Waltz, as Eastman usually has when he's going solo. And a few things. First off, this came out the same day as the issue, which some people are griping about, and I understand. I had the thought first at 2, but then I realized it's Halloween, and this Halloween they're doing kind of a free comic book day, which was done pretty awesomely. And one of the comics they're giving away was the first issue of the new run of Ninja Turtles. So what they're trying to do is get people to check out that first issue, realize there's stuff on the shelves, maybe get them to pick this puppy up, especially if they're longtime fans, because there's a reason to. And they're really trying to push this series, especially now that they are reprinting the classics colors and trades, because they're far enough ahead to do that. They have the big, thick black and white books that are going. And now they're talking about Tales of the Ninja Turtles that will be going back into the past and kind of playing in the old Turtleverse. And it looks like Jim Lawson will be on art, at least originally, but they'll be playing with the old Mirage continuity, which is kind of weird after reading a lot more of that, and the reason I've been doing videos on that is because those books just... There's kind of a point where the continuity stops, and then it's just like a bunch of different people's take on the Ninja Turtles. And it's like, if you were to collect it, it would be a bizarre anthology book, but really it's just indie people doing stuff with the Ninja Turtles, and very little of it actually plays to continuity until you get back to City at War, sans a few issues. So there's all that. The big thing about this, and Minutia asked me this, and I had to spend some time researching this because it blew my mind. This is the first book that Eastman's done, like, all the way through. Not just, like, a cover, not just a little back. This is the first, like, full Ninja Turtle comic Eastman's worked on since City at War. That's pretty big. And it feels like an old Ninja Turtle comic when you hold it up, but there's a few things to note to you that it's taking place in this new continuity. Differences are small, it doesn't really matter. And when I started reading this, I was kind of like, okay, it's good, but it's not blowing me away. And with the price point being $9, I mean, this is not a cheap pickup. And don't get me wrong, it's 60 pages, no ad, but black and white, which really should have brought it down to like $7.99 at least. They really... But once I kind of got past the halfway in the story, there was so much going on and so many things were coming together. I mean, this was like a little mini arc all by itself, and it has a lot more of the old school feel. And if you're looking for a throwback and maybe something that reads and looks more like, you know, the classic Ninja Turtles, this could be a worthwhile pickup, though if any way you can find it to be discounted, I'd highly recommend it. And it glances at a lot of the Ninja Turtles cast, and I actually think it would have been stronger, especially in the beginning, if it forewent, including a bunch of little different people and focused it just a little bit more and gave a bit more character notice, because the three turtles are out, sans Raphael, and they're all like, rah, rah, rah. And then to kind of lead into the fact that Raphael and Casey are out goofing around, then they get into this whole big scuffle where some diamonds are going from one French ninja clan, and that ninja clan, interestingly, looks kind of like Narutards, and they have these diamonds to pay tribute to the foot. And so you have all this going on, and then while they're on their way, they get into a car accident, and then the diamonds kind of end up in this one bit, and Casey Jones and Raphael are talking about it with some other just regular New Yorkers, and like, what should they do? And there's kind of this moral complication there, which is interesting, but yeah. And then the two ninja clans kind of key onto the location, and then shit just goes to hell, and it gets kind of crazy, which is when it really starts to get fun, but there's a lot of lead up. And it's definitely good that this all read in one package, because otherwise it definitely would have fell a bit short. But one fun little aside here, and this is how they introduce a lot of the characters, is this little like bubble to kind of point at people and give you a brief little thing. I'll just read it here. Detectives Frank Corbin and Richard Dick Miller, veteran officers on the same crooked take. Two wrongs most definitely do not make a right. And it's just this fun little nod to kind of Frank Miller and Richard Corbin, who were two artistic influences that really inspired Kevin Eastman. And it's known that, you know, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird came together over love of like Jack Kirby and Frank Miller and that sort of thing, and it was really cool to kind of see a little nod like that tucked in here, because it was that sort of old school comic book nod is the sort of thing that used to be laced all throughout Ninja Turtles, and something that kind of hasn't been there. It was nice to see them fit it in for this, or them, I mean Eastman. And man, I mean, I'll have to read it again to get the whole thing. I mean, it's written like an old school comic. I mean, it's just tons of bubbles, and then when there needs to be an action page, but there's no double page spreads or any bullshit. It's good, but nothing is as good as some of the amazing layouts that used to be in the old Turtles or anything like that. There was no like blow me away pages, but it was all pretty good. So I think if you're edging and thinking about like, oh man, I want to pick it up, this could very well be worth it. But if you're really on the edge, I mean, it's $9. I'd say wait for it to be reprinted somewhere or something. It has to be cheaper at some point, because this is a little bit ridiculous. So yeah, I looked through Cyberforce, and it's interesting, but I really have a hard time picking this up, especially in the light of this week when it's clear that there's so many better books you could be reading. But hard to argue with the price for now. Maybe something will hook you along the way, though. I do think that they're crazy to put out 5 issues and not just do a big thing and then like a bigger printing, which I think ultimately would be cheaper, and put that out for free for people to grab, and then let you continue from there or something, or maybe experiment with it a little differently. But it's interesting to see that, you know, Kickstarter had enough people to really push it through so that these people get these issues for free, and let a bunch of other people try it, and then hopefully some people get hooked. I'm hoping more people get hooked, because it'd be nice to, you know, get some people to branch out. Right. And Fatale 9, I'll see where it's at, but I'm really starting to feel that this book is not worth picking up in issues right now. there's not enough momentum in any given issue to make me think, oh man, this is awesome. I always like it, like it's good, it's crafted, it's there, the art's good, don't get me wrong, but it always has me feeling like I feel like I'm missing so much. It doesn't feel like they're answering anything, and I feel lost in every issue, and I'm like, there's too many other comic books I could be picking up that I get so much more out of, instead of just this weird murky feeling that I get out of this book. So wah wah. And then there's Rachel Rising. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. There's so much more in here than, like, Fatale. Like, oh my god, this is just laced with bits. It works in a dark twist within a joke that is a character moment while being something that makes the book infinitely more relatable. Like, so much better written because it doesn't rely on the crux of keeping you in the dark to keep the mystery going. It relies on revealing enough that makes you more curious about what isn't revealed yet. And that's such a more satisfying story than just being strung along. Because after a point, why do you care? Oh my, just... Oh my gosh, I mean, it's Terry Moore. What are you doing if you're not picking up this book? Amazing stuff. Batgirl Annual. This art is a bit weird. It's trying to be realistic, but it hits something that just is like weird, point in the uncanny valley, but get used to it. But the Gail Simone writing hits kind of all the beats that are some of the stuff that I love about Gail Simone. There's just such a detail to like how the fight's going, and you know what that means, which puts so much more weight on the action and makes it all relevant to the characters and how they fight and how they can do that. You have a great amount of interpersonal stuff, though there is a bit of slipping of like girls talking about boys in here, which is really weird in a Gail Simone comic, and I don't know, it's kind of like and then just have some interesting points, but you get Catwoman written in a way that isn't just terrible. And so yeah, I mean this is fun reading. You know, it feels like reading a little arc all to itself, and it ties into the whole Talon bit. So yeah, Batman Beyond. Oh snap! This book's down to 3 stories going, and there's a wrap up to the Superman Beyond arc that's a definitive Superman moment. And then the rest is just cool, but kind of in the middle of what it's doing. And man, this book just keeps reading amazingly. So there you go. It's just a shame that when you want to go and read and coalesce all the stories, you're going to have to flip through and kind of read bits and pieces of one comic at a time. So Rocketeer Gargov 3 is awesome. It pulls off something from Jurassic Park 3 better than Jurassic Park 3 ever did, even though that was the entire crux. Or I mean Jurassic Park 2. Who saw 3? No one, right? Oh man, there's just some moments in here that are excellent. The only problem with this book is it suffers from being issue 3 in a 4-issue miniseries. I mean, all the setup's there, and it's just kind of an action beat, but you're not really going to get any resolution because it's all leading up to that final issue. Literally the criticism, like the nature of what it is it's never pick up this book. It's awesome, much unlike the original stuff. Like, don't even bother reading that. It's not worth it at all. But this is pretty cool and has some awesomeness. So Scam 2 is out, and this does something I don't get to see in too many heist things. It actually has some fun with the idea of this whole superhero on the sly thing, and just gets to some of the debauchery of Vegas and just runs with it. and has the introduction of one of the coolest villains I've seen in I don't know how long, which is Crosswords, which is just, when you get there, it's just like, you see a panel and you see the look and you're just like, yes. I mean, it's just something that, I don't know, like, you hear about new characters and stuff and you're like, yeah, but sometimes something hits and there's design and you're just like, yeah. Fuck yeah, I know what this guy's about. Let's see some more. Like, just the concept's so clear, and that is what this delivered out of nowhere. So awesome. Right. Angel and Faith is using the previous run of Buffy more effectively than the Buffy title is. The only downside is definitely not time to jump on the book, but wow, this is using continuity in a fairly powerful way. If you're not really familiar with the whole Angelverse, you're probably going to be lost, but sometimes that shit needs to happen for things to take bold steps forward. Multiple Warheads is a book that you should read. This is mostly a reprinting from what I understand, but it seems like this is getting enough momentum, and before it was published in Oni in a pre-Image World that we have now. Man, this book is just fun, and it has the art that you can just look at and get a sense of the story without necessarily reading it. And what's also really cool is the bleeds. You'll see that the art just goes through the page, because when I picked it up I was like, is this book bigger? Like, physically taller and wider than other comics? Because I thought it was like a golden age prestige like size, because I don't know, something about, I mean, there's some weight to it and whatnot, and no, it's the same size, thicker. But what it is it's just the bleeds are so that it just goes to the end of the page, which allows a little more art to fit on every page, and it's just beautiful and, you know, cartooning at its finest. So I think everybody's been saying it. Pick this up. I missed it last week for whatever reason at the shop, but yeah, man, wow. So this week apparently is the week of paying a little bit more for pages out the ass, but Bedlam 1, wow. This is kind of like such a dark take on a gritty superhero comic that it really reads more like a horror comic in a lot of respects, like a horror crime story. And it's there, the dialogue's there, you get a bit of the Nick Spencer-ness without the Lost effect, it feels like, and it's fucking dark, man. But you'd be remiss to skip on this. I can already feel some people doing a whole Batman comparison deal. No, not really. I feel like this is so much grittier. It has so much more in common with some older Image take on superheroes and whatnot, like Prophet Messiahs. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but there's some other stuff that it's more relatable to. But man, another thing worth checking out. Doesn't that suck? Weeks that are just so great with everything that was totally worth checking out, than other weeks where you're like, yeah, I guess check this out, but and then before I get to the next book, something just hit me. This is the 5th week of the month, and DC right now is very particular about its shipping schedule with the New 52, with good reason. And they're using this 5th week to put out the 5th week months is when they put out annuals to try to fill it up and maybe get people to try something where they haven't, or work in something extra, and it makes perfect sense. It's also when it tends to be a lighter Marvel week, and that makes sense. And just to go ahead, I mean, there's a couple DC books I'll talk about. no Marvel this week, and that's after all that other independent stuff. And this being Halloween in particular, I think independents were making a big point to try to grab people where they could, get them to check out something different, especially horror comics, right? Because 'tis the season. There's a couple that I was curious about, but I'm not so big on horror, so I kind of glazed over because I already had a pile. But man, it's just huge, and it's nice to see that push. It's also nice to see independents push for that 5th week, because it allows people who are like, oh, it's like this week and I want to look for things to try. It's a great time for people to try to jump onto these books. Part of the problem, like I feel like I've been saying like a broken record lately for the ongoing stuff, not necessarily a great place to jump on generally. But, oh man, so many great books, and it's just kind of interesting to see that market dynamic kind of snap into action. So, that's it for the reviews this week, but that's not all she wrote.
So now that I've done all that, do you mind telling me what's going on? Sorry about that. Yeah, we kind of set up this other YouTube channel. You should go check it out. And while you're at it, you should probably check out this book too. There's something about it going on that's kind of important coming up, seems like.
Oi, leave that book alone.
The problem is that your world is just doing review after review, but it needs more than reviews. It needs issues.
Issues? We don't need issues. I already got a room full of them.
Well, there's nothing hotter than a guy who's just as hot as me with a long comic collection. Well, it's not cheating if it's masturbation, right? Ooh.
What are you doing? The world is ending!
My god, this means we'll all have to watch a Donnelly-length video.
Ow! Oh well, it's all good.